Good evening, afternoon, good day. My name is Michael Mason. Many of you will already know me. For those who don't, I'm the founder of Plus My Reach, and I'm joined this evening by a few people on the film strip who I'm hoping you will know to talk about monetizing Hangouts. Now, this is the fifth show in a series of six, and this evening, or today, in this broadcast, we're going to talk about matching sponsors with content. Now, I've previously covered, other things such as branding and your media kit and the things that are involved there. And you're welcome to watch those. They're in the description. And we're more than happy to take comments from the viewers. And if you'd like to, this evening, we can also bring you into the film strip to discuss any ideas that you have, any suggestions that you have with the film strip, with the guys in the broadcast. I'm going to introduce everybody, starting from my left to right. We've got James Daisley. Hi, James. James is muted. And I don't appear to be able to select him. That's interesting. Okay. One moment while I correct that. Okay, on to Laurie. Hi, Laurie. And the Hangout is just hanging on me. Could you unmute yourself, Laurie? Okay. This is interesting. Hi, Laurie. Still muted, I think.
It won't let me. Oh, there it is.
Ah, fantastic.
So yeah, it wouldn't let me unmute.
That's very strange. Oh well, we have our gremlins this evening. That gives me a challenge. Okay, I think most of the people watching will already know you, but if you'd just like to introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Lori from CustomizeWalls.com. I'm one of the moderators for the interior design community, and I'm one of the partners for Plus My Reach. And I'm very big into numbers, so I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about the process today, which is how to match the sponsor to the content, which is an important part of the process to monetize.
Okay, we appear to have lost audio on you again, Laurie.
Again, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's working now. James, if you try unmuting yourself and I can bring you into the film strip. This is really, really strange. Still not working for you, is it? Okay.
Yeah, I clicked on it several times before it would allow me.
Yeah, well, I've had a similar problem myself, which is why I use the headset to mute, so it's a hardware mute. But for some reason, it seems to be playing games with people. We're also joined, hopefully, if we can hear her, by Lainey Sullivan this evening.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine, Lainey. Hi.
Okay. Hi, thanks for having me on, you guys.
Excited to have you, Lainey.
Yes, I know, Lori, you and I have been talking for, what, a couple months, almost a couple months now about this whole process. So you've been my guide.
Well, having walked through the process a few times now, it is tricky, and if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to have a little bit of trouble competing with some of the other products that are out there, Twitter chats, blogs, whatnot. So, just getting to know what the basics are, I think, is so helpful. And I'm not the total expert. I definitely read up and talk to others who have tips and tricks that I find all the time. I love it.
I found that you're the most knowledgeable, though, so far on GooglePlus about this.
Well, I think that for Hangouts, the idea of monetizing is new. But for blogs and for Twitter chats or other forms of very similar content, even video blogs on YouTube. It's not that new. So it's, just educating people that are in this like new area how to use some older practices to help them, start making money with doing something that they really enjoy doing. And there's the audience is there, the people are there, the engagement is there. So it just makes sense that it would work for a brand. And I can tell you the brands we talk to a lot, they love it. The coming onto a Hangout for their very first time, I've never had a brand leave it and say, I hated it. I don't want to do that ever again. And they are almost always saying, this is amazing. I love it. We want to do more of these. They're so cutting edge. It feels so great. And there's something just about their ability to just come online, come into a video, and it's people from all over the country or all over the world, and they're able to talk about a specific subject and have a talk show, really, and it's fantastic. So I definitely see some growth potential, especially we're talking about, going to events, having, Hangouts live from trade shows, live from, grocery store openings or restaurant openings, and I definitely see that coming into play soon.
Yeah, I think it's going to be amazing.
Yeah. So let's get started. We're going to talk all about, in this episode, how to match your content with the sponsor. And the very first suggestion that I always have is make sure you have an editorial calendar, because you can go through the process of picking the subjects you're going to cover in the year. You can if you're going to cover holidays, you can talk about that. If you're going to cover seasons, your industry has their own seasons. You can automatically kind of fill in some of the empty spaces for this yearly calendar or monthly calendar. And then you have events in your industry that you might want to throw in there. And there's always the the topics that are just socially we know about, like kids going back to school, kids ending school. Depending on your industry, there's just a lot that can be covered in topics that everyone is going to be talking about during that time of year. And you fill that in with for me, I fill it in with industry events like trade shows or big events that are happening in my industry, in the home decor industry. And that helps me just have a handle on what I'm going to be talking about to sponsors, and so that I have an idea of which sponsors I want to match up with which show. Because if I'm doing a show about healthy living, I wouldn't want to reach out to McDonald's, maybe. You know what I mean? It's about matching the right sponsor that really has their message in line with your event. And Laine, you were telling me about a series that you're going to be doing about sustainability. And that's such an awesome topic. Are you going to do a whole month, or is it just one show?
We're doing 5 weeks.
5 weeks of a talk of sustainability. There are numerous companies that are in line with that message. I mean, in my industry, in the building industry, there are tile companies. There are Crossville Tile. Their products are made 100% of recycled, or a lot of their products are made from recycled goods. They actually participate in LEED. Do you know anything about LEED building? LEED.
No, I don't, but I know
a certification that the building itself will be as sustainable as possible. And there are certifications you have to get for all the products. So if you're really going to have a LEED, it's a huge architectural process to have LEED certified architects and building. But within that, there's a tremendous amount of companies that are LEED certified. And there are companies that have committed to sustainable practices in manufacturing. So those are the things I think of when I'm thinking that you're doing this great 5-week period where you're talking about sustainability. And to me, that's what I would be researching if I were trying to find a sponsor for that group of shows. I'd be looking at companies that their message right now is sustainability. And if you knew that like 3 months ago or 4 months ago that you were going to do this sustainability 5 weeks, it's even better for you to reach out to some different brands that have that message, 5 weeks ago, so you can start putting them in line and lining them up with your shows.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's so great. So you're talking about sustainability. What is your main focus on that? I know you do a lot of women's issues, which I love, but how are you going to focus that on sustainability? What type of topics about sustainability are you going to cover?
I was originally going to do a health and wellness series, and we switched it. I switched it because of Wayne Meador's sustainable change mission that he's doing, and I was able to secure a director and a producer for a documentary, a very large, well-known documentary, as a guest on one of the shows, and so it just was a really good fit to transition the entire show from just basic health and wellness, but to sustainability. So we're going to do 2 weeks on sustainable food. We have Leah Segedy coming on the first week, and then the director, producer, Kristen Canty, coming on the second week. And then we're going to do 2 sustainable shows, one on your home and one on your garden. Like, we're going to do like an indoor-outdoor sustainability, and then we're going to do like a lifestyle, body, like, little things that you can change, within your day-to-day activities, sustainability. So
that's fantastic.
So it's quite the process.
It is, and that's the great thing about having these editorial calendars. You can kind of like see how things play out, talking to different guests that you want to bring on the show, and getting a really big guest. You just mentioned a well-known document fill producer, and I think that even leads to a sponsor being more interested, because if it's someone famous, if it's someone that is well known, the chances of the audience being bigger and the audience being more engaged are much higher, and they can link their brand with this fantastic documentary and say that we sponsored this fantastic interview. And so those types of things also come into play. Who do you have lined up to interview? Who do you have lined up to talk to? Because, sponsors sometimes want to have those relationships with the people that you're interviewing, especially if they have pull. So we actually have a few more guests down here. Michael wants to introduce. Michael, why don't you go ahead and do that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Laurie. We've been joined by James Daisley and Michelle. I'm really sorry, Michelle, but if I pronounce your last name, I'm going to do a really bad job of it. So if you'd like to introduce yourself, please. And he's muted. Oh no, it's the gremlins are back. Oh, no, he's not. Hi, Michelle.
Yeah, I'm there. Do you hear me?
I do. We all hear you, yes.
Yes, hi folks. My name is Michel Rival. Well, when I lived in Australia, we call me Michael Rival, as I told you, but in French it is Michel Rival. Okay? So okay. I'm just putting my. Wait a minute, please. Yes, here it is. You should see my
WebKiss. Yes.
Yes, here I am, Michael. Yes, thank you for introducing me. I am, on one side, I'm a food blogger, a very known food blogger here in Europe and all over the world by Cuisine ACR. So, we are followed by more than 160 countries. We are in the top blogs of Europe, over 2,200,000 blogs indexed, okay? So, this blog is done with my wife. She is a photographer and a wife, perfect wife, and a mother, and she also is a great cook. But on the other side, I am a French entrepreneur on the web. So we have been selected today. Just want to tell you that Wix, one of the most important HTML5 platform, has selected our new website, webkiss.fr. because very innovative. Okay, so that is also we also build content, and I'm following you guys since a couple of weeks. It's very interesting. You too, Laurie. You don't know me, but I listen a lot what you talk about, and I know a little bit more Michael, and I also know a little Lanny. But your other guest, James. Hello, James. I'm calling you from France in Strasbourg, northeast of France. You know, the European Council. I live just next Germany, Luxembourg, Switzerland. So that's it. What should I talk about with you tonight?
Well, we're really excited that you're on, because this is fantastic. You have a blog, and you've probably been monetizing your blog for quite a while, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
More than that, yes. More than that, let me talk about something very innovative. I am making some HOAs with Aslin Bloor. You know, she is very known on the web for cooking shows, making cooking shows with her. But the real key about business modeling is what we propose with WebKiss. If you go on WebKiss, Michael, I think that you saw that yesterday. We have made 3 new pages on G+, because we have found a way to make business with companies, startups, and also with individuals, you know, with sportsmen who must reinvent their careers. So on one side, I have created a program named Show. That means start here and open wide. And we build
fantastic.
We build with people and brands and startups their business model with a canvas, a universal canvas, and we pull out what value and what viability, and that way this includes economics, of course. And I'm in business since over 20 years, and this is the most fantastic way. And I also talk about this with my kids. Okay, so we all think about what value I want to bring, I want to provide, and in my case for business, of course, and for brands, startups, and people, they ask themselves, so what is my value, and how can I provide this value? What viability must I build to bring it to them? And so I also, to just make finished my presentation, I work with a great designer in France. He is a designer, but you must not just think about design for objects, okay? We are talking about thinking design. You know, this means you must be sure when you open a project what value, what viability, and this is the starting of what we call design project design. Okay, so when this is done, you can pull out and visualize much better what we create in studios about web, all web parts that you need. Of course, high technologic websites and blogs, and of course, all the graphics you need, as you call that, Laurie, media kits, you know, media kits that you need for a Hangout or for other web sites. So, in fact, WebKiss proposes 3 directions. On one side, you have WebKiss for branding. You have also WebKiss for startups and fundraising, of course. And on the other side, on the third side, you have WebKiss for new careers. So what we do is business modeling, and then we build our HOA with people to show their value. And of course, this is also working with Google Display Networks for intelligent advertising.
Sure.
That's great, Michelle. Sure. Right, we've got one more guest to move on to. which is James. I know James. James and I have hung out. Hopefully, some of the people, in fact, hopefully all of the people watching should know James, and if they don't, they should. James, would you like to introduce yourself, buddy?
Yeah, but I tell you what, before I do that,
yeah, sure.
I would love to just say that I've learned two things already. The first one is that I think Australians' names are not a patch on French ones. Michelle, keep your French name, mate. It sounds great.
Okay, mate. Thank you.
And,
that's good.
Absolutely. I mean, French names always sound better than Australian ones, and even British ones. And said in a French accent, it's, you know, you can't argue with that. And the second thing I've also worked out is, bearing in mind the topic of this conversation is monetizing your Hangouts. I've also realised that there's no way you can monetize a Hangout if your microphone is permanently muted. I don't think you stand a lot of chance in that respect, to be honest. But look, hey guys, look, it's nice to see you all. Michael, it's been a while. Laurie, it's nice to finally be acquainted to you.
Yes, I'm looking forward to meeting you forever.
Yeah, there you go, there you go. But look, no, I'm just I'm a sort of jack of all trades, master of none, and enjoy the Hangouts. And I organise quite a few for my clients, but I've done very, very few for me. And I've got several series of Hangouts launching as we speak. One is called the Midweek Marketing Mix, which is just sort of like cutting edge marketing stories and news and what's going on. And Laurie, I think I invited you to those to sort of partake, because it's just there to talk about what's new and exciting and going on. And then I'm doing one on what the data tells you. So this is why I'm fascinated by what you guys are doing about monetizing Hangouts and the Plus My Reach stuff. And then I get a lot of work involved with the technology world. So this is why Michael and I have started talking a lot about helicopter drones and virtual reality and augmented reality.
Oh, yeah.
And lots of fun and interesting and bizarre things. So there you are, James Dearsley, jack of all trades, master of none.
I think it's fantastic that you have clients. You work a lot in the real estate market, correct?
Yeah, I do. Predominantly real estate, but in terms of Hangouts, a whole variety of people.
No, okay. Well, we have, we do our weekly, and it's focused on the interior design market, but there are just so many different industries out there that have different focuses and different brands that would appeal to that focus. And we have a question up. This would be interesting. Will you also be talking about how to avoid issues when monetizing with sponsors? Well, there are times issues can come up, and you have to. We talked a little bit about this in the last Hangout, and one of the challenges is you really can't control certain things in a Hangout, right? You can't control whether or not the streaming is going to work perfectly, and you can't control what a guest says. And some of that language needs to probably be in your contract so that the sponsors understand that you're putting on a live event, and there's a little bit of risk to that. But with it comes this great cutting edge technology, and of course really evergreen content that can be reused, rewatched many times over. It doesn't end after the event, which is so fantastic. And so, talking to them a little bit about the process, I would definitely not highlight those issues can come up, but definitely have some of that language in your proposal contract that says that these things might happen. And that your job is to be a great host and to bring an audience and to make the content engaging to your audience. I mean, that's your first job. And brands are not going to sponsor you because your show is so fantastic. They're going to sponsor you because you have an audience. So you never want to lose sight of that. You always want to keep in your sights that your audience is the most important thing. And the brands want to stick with you because your audience is there.
Well, yes, Laurie, I think that you are perfectly right. The way that I have built the biggest network all over the world on G+, is following at first the most important influencers, okay? I have done a show, Michael, you can perhaps tell a bit more. The 18th of May, I have done my cooking in my house, in my little farm here in Strasbourg, and over 27 million reaches, Michael. The 18th March with.
We ran some. Yeah, we ran some reports on the shows that Aslin was doing, and as other people do. Excuse me.
The most important, and Laurie, you are right. Frenchmen are not really. They don't not really use G+ technology here. You know, we're a little bit late with that. So, what I have done is in my blog, I have embedded the YouTube video, so our biggest fans could watch us from all over the world on all the countries. They saw me cooking in my own blog, you know. So with Google Analytics, I had to get my numbers, and of course, Michael provided me the other numbers from the streams that he analyzes, etc. So the most important is to keep your authorship, leadership. Well, in France, it's nearly the same. And you must stay in contact with your audience. And what I'm proposing to my brands and clients is to rent the audience from our big influencers on G+. And so we make shows with a business modeling around the product or service. And that's the only way to really provide a message in a unique message, you know, with each hangout. So this is very important, and I think that Laurie is really perfect. You're right, and that's the biggest problem, is to organize the audience and keep the audience leadership from the influencers, and to organize them with and make contact with brands. And so my biggest job, and that's why I built an intranet, is to make sure that we talk together, we communicate, and we organize things as we must perfectly do with marketing services, etc. So that's the best way that I have found today to monetize Hangouts, because the real problem to finish what I'm saying is I have analyzed these few years that social influencers, they do what they do on the web, but they don't know why. They do it. It's natural, you know. We are all connecting ourselves with synaptic connections in the brain, and we are in a synaptic web. That's what we call. But we don't know for the moment how to make rules between, you know, both sides of the brain. So
it's trying to make those connections, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Can I just pick up on, Michelle, something that you said, which I think is quite important, and it actually goes back to two of the points which Laurie, you mentioned as well. One of the things which I think is fundamentally critical here is organisation. And I think, Laurie, you mentioned about producing an editorial calendar, and I think that's as much organisation about yourself and organising your guests, your subject matter, your topics of conversation.
Yes.
Is transparency for your audience and your sponsors. Yeah. If your sponsors know there's a coordinated program, it's not just a one-off, it's a coordinated program going forward, they're more likely to invest in you and invest in your show. At the same time, your audience is more likely to invest in you because they also understand it's not a fly-by-night option. The other side of this as well is that, Michelle, you picked up on taking the Hangout outside of GooglePlus. Now, it's interesting what you made there, because I think that a lot of the sponsors that I will be going to are going to turn around and say to me, yeah, but James, but nobody uses GooglePlus in the UK. They don't understand it. It's a bit too complicated. Yeah. And the very point that you can say to them, yeah, that's fine, of course, and we understand that entirely. And that is why, actually, what we're talking about here is that it's not just about GooglePlus. It's about YouTube. It's about your own blog and the analytics that you have which go behind that. And therefore, here's a case study. This is how many hits we had. This is the engagement rate. This is how long they spent on the page. This is how many pages they clicked on from here. So you're not just focusing on the GooglePlus community, but you're focusing outside of that. I mean, also there's been a big surge at the moment with the use of certain apps within Facebook that you can say, and you can calm down sponsors by saying, look, it's not just GooglePlus, website, YouTube, it's also Facebook. And I also believe that that has really, it needs to make that organizational message to your sponsors that that is what's going on. And secondly, and I think just in terms of guests, because Laurie, you mentioned about, no, sorry, Michelle, you mentioned about influential guests. For me, in terms of getting that reach out there, you've got to be so organized, not just in the beforehand, in terms of organizing the structure of your Hangouts, what subjects you're talking about, but also if you've got influencers who are coming into your Hangouts, is making it really, really easy for them to amplify your message outside of just you. Because the power of one is nothing, the power of many is huge. So if you've got these really, really big influencers out there, I mean, I make sure we just sent out our first, I have a producer who does a lot of my work behind the scenes for me, and we make sure that we don't only, we send them an email 7 days. As soon as we set up the HOA, we send out an email with the event link, with the YouTube embed code, with the 22 Social app link, with videos of how they can clone that app onto their Facebook page, how they can share that event for them. Now, these may be influencers, but they like it put on a plate for them so that they can very easily distribute your message out. And the very point that if you have that level of organization beforehand, you can amplify your message, you can get sponsors in very, very easily because they look at you as a total package, not just a, you know, should we not? And so I just wanted to pick up on both Laurie and Michelle's points because I think they were equally valid. So
I think you're spot on. I mean, what you're saying is it's so important. I actually didn't even think of that process, but you do have sometimes guests who are incredibly well known and or have their own networks, and you have your viewers who have their own networks, and if you do make it easy to share with, you know, for them to share your product, or if you have a guest and they've said something really fantastic and you timestamp it and say, you know, this was a really great that you said this. Here, you know, here's the video right at that spot. So you might want to share that, you know, because it was such a great comment. You know, making it easy and making people remember to share the product. A note though, I've been in discussions with a lot of people who do embed videos on their blog, and I embed it on my blog, so I'm as guilty. And we're noticing that not all the views that you have on your website actually carry over to YouTube and count as views, and there's talk of YouTube caching the views and bringing them in later. You know, it might take a month to come in, that kind of thing. But pay attention to the numbers a little bit and understand where your numbers are on your website, and also combine sometimes with the YouTube video. So just make sure you're paying attention to where your numbers are on those different platforms because they don't always carry over. So that's kind of one of the reasons why we wanted to have our product plus my reach, you know, not just measure the engagement on GooglePlus, but also hook into the other platforms like YouTube and hopefully some of the other platforms later. So, you know, just something to think about. What a great idea. I mean, that's James. That was awesome. That was great. You have another question?
Just add to that on the end about the organizational side. One of the things that we also feel is that the post Hangout bit is often forgotten. And you mentioned timestamps there, Laurie, and one of the things that we think is quite important is, again, with these influential followers, is give them the copy of the video and then give them the timestamps as well, so that they can amplify that again. It's just very easy to do. Yeah.
And I will say that quite often when I'm interviewing someone who has not been on GooglePlus before, and I have interviewed quite a few people that was their first time on GooglePlus, first time using Hangouts. I do have on the very top of our Hangout outlines. We have an Evernote Hangout outline that has just a standard thing on the top that says where they can find the event, where they, you know, that they should RSVP. It tells them how to download the Hangout plugin if they haven't downloaded it yet. and it walks them through the process that they need to, you know, get together before they come in. And I usually let them know little things like, you know, they might not have a lower third, so I might tell them, you make sure you have a small 400 by 400 pixel or small little square logo, or if you want to use your picture, that's fine, and your web address, so that I can help them get their lower third set up before when they come in. Just make it as easy for your guests, make it as easy for your sponsors to be able to participate and be able to spread the word. I think that's the key. Just having that organization is amazing.
You know, Lori, I do that with, I create a green room for all of my guests, and I have green rooms out 8 to 12 weeks out set up for our show. And I know that sounds like a lot for a lot of people, like that seems very far out, but I just recreate the same green room. I've already got a template laid out, and it literally breaks down for my guests my expectations for them during the show, where everything can be found after the show, so that way there's no hunting for anything. They know what their responsibilities are. They know how to do download of the plugins, and all the conversation pre-show happens on a green room event, and it's all controlled. You're not having to hunt down Hangout chats and emails and the whole 9 yards, you know, because we all have so many different social media channels that we have to manage. So now a conversation can happen with every guest, and it seems to be working really well for us, for all of our moderators and all of our guests.
That's fantastic. I mean, making it easier for people is the name of the game, and you know, that's another thing to think about too, as you are going down this valley of trying to get sponsors. Is, you know, sometimes the sponsor has a huge network too, so it actually helps you build your audience to have that sponsor, because quite often they want to share your show too. They were part of it, so they want to put it on their channels, and their channels in many cases can be even, you know, much larger than yours. So making it easy for that to happen will also build your audience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. On the other side, I see that a very interesting question is coming from Scott. Wait a minute, please.
Scott Scowcroft, yeah.
Thank you, Michael. And as you can see, he is talking about, well, who is liable in case things go wrong? Which laws prevail for international HOAs? So, I have just one answer. We are starting a new business in Luxembourg, okay, for WebKiss. So we have great lawyers and with big banks and businessmen. Okay, that's their real problem, to make sure that we are making business with brands and also people, influencers, providing us the shows, and of course who rents for, as you understand, we rent their networks some way. So the real question is how to organize. At first, that's what we saw. So in the program show that we propose in WebKiss, at the second point, if our client wants to go too fast, the second point is no show, no go. Because if you don't prepare everything, and if people, the best way to make sure that something will go in the good way, is preparing people and understand what value and what viability, and to be sure that everything has been organized around that. The first point, and that's why that we are all making sometimes big mistakes, because we don't organize enough at the first step. And that's what we really recommend to all our brands, and this can work in every country. It doesn't matter. If you make this point sure, you can do big things, because in WebKiss, make it KISS for project managers. That means keep it smart and simple.
Yes, yeah. But I also think that it's good to know that the host usually is I would think that the laws of if someone was coming after you in a lawsuit, that the law in your specific area would prevail because it's the host show, and it's in their location, and that's all geolocation. So you'd have to be aware of your local laws, but
Yeah.
I don't think that with sponsors and sponsored activity, I'm not saying that there isn't a significant amount of money being exchanged there, but I think that the language in the contracts usually is not, as severe as in other contractual agreements, because they're so used to marketing multiple platforms and working with bloggers and working with Twitter chats and working with Facebook, stars and Instagram stars and Pinterest stars, and they're not going to come after you, unless you really did something really wrong.
Well, sorry, Laurie, Scott also mentioned about the IP, the intellectual property, and it's just come to mind. I did some research on that when we were looking at paid product placement, and I looked into the Hangout and also the YouTube terms of service regarding this. Technically, legally, the intellectual property belongs to, for example, this show would belong to Plus My Reach, and it wouldn't matter who paid us. We actually own the intellectual property. Now, I don't know, and this is an interesting point that Scott brings up. Let's say, for example, somebody sponsors one of our broadcasts and specifically requests the ownership of the intellectual property. I don't think that's possible under the YouTube terms of service. We would have to actually broadcast to their account, I think.
I think that that's what, in the case, and this is actually something I have in my media kit also. I don't necessarily just do events for interior design community or under my name. Sometimes I do events for a brand, and I'm sure as experienced HOA hosts out there, you're probably going to get offers at some point to work with brands. They're trying to launch something on GooglePlus. It's really only natural that they're going to reach out to the influencers. And so if you are an influencer on GooglePlus and you have an audience, I can imagine that you have an opportunity with brands that are coming on here with their shows and maybe not getting a huge audience to work with them on their branded show, and it'll start from them. It'll be their content, their property, and it'll go to their YouTube channel. But you can come in and produce it, or be the host, or work with them as an influencer to invite your circles, and your audience will love their product. Those kinds of opportunities, I'm sure, are there. But I think that just to answer the question, the intellectual property should be under the terms of the host. I mean, that's the host's property. But it doesn't mean that you could have an agreement where the sponsor might want to syndicate your content. Maybe they want to either download it and utilize it, have the ability to download your content and utilize it on their platforms, or edit it and utilize it on their platforms, and you may allow that, and that's just going to be something that you'd have to decide whether you want to do or not.
So, Lori, I'd love to bring up a question. I mean, I know what I do with it, but maybe not everybody does. When you're looking at what you want for sponsorships and the companies that you're going after, so my niche is this, right? So when you're looking for sponsorships, matching sponsors to matching guests, because sometimes it's about matching the guest, not necessarily the topic. So it's like the topic, the guest, and the sponsor together. Can we talk about that and give people some direction on how they kind of, which direction to start? Do they look for their guest, their topic, or their sponsor first?
I would usually, when we have, depends on the agreement, frankly, and sometimes that you have the agreement where you want to do an intro outro, and sometimes your brand wants to do something different. Maybe they want to get people over to look at their G+ page. I mean, it really depends on what their goals are, but I think that the process is talking to them about those goals, and then lining up that show so that it meets their needs. It's addressing an issue that they're trying to promote today and it fits with those goals, but at the same time it's not pandering to the sponsor. And we talked about this just before when we were in the green room, that there's a tendency when money has exchanged hands that you do feel indebted. You feel like that you're an employee of the sponsor at that hangout, and you might change content because of it, or make it more of a commercial for the sponsor. And I'd urge you not to do that because you can't ever forget that your audience doesn't want that. Your audience doesn't want to listen to an hour-long commercial about Band-Aids, or whoever's sponsoring you. They want to, it's great to have an intro and outro tagline and why it fits in. We thank so and so for sponsoring our hangout today. Their goals of working to make their company one of the most sustainable companies in the United States really fit in with our message, and now onto our guests, and you work that. But I would really try as hard as you can not to change the content to make it too much of a commercial. And if you are presented with an opportunity to do that, because sometimes a brand actually might have a purpose for a hangout. They want the hangout to be about their product. Maybe they have a new product that they're releasing and they really want to do a hangout about that. And in those cases, you might want them to have the hangout. They are having the hangout, but you've just come on as a host. And you can kind of try to see who that would want, find a circle or two that that would really, really love that content. But be careful about inundating your audience with these, paid commercials because, you have to make sure they really want to watch it, because you really can lose people that way.
Good point, Laurie. Just for finishing, I just wanted to say something about that. The point is that the art of branding is no advertising, but public relations. That's the most important. And I think that the real other point is that the influencers have natural influence. They are very intelligent people, and the real job is to make. They must be not. They must provide a message and not an advertise. So that's the way we prepare by business modeling everything. Everything. When I say everything, it is everything. That means that we choose the team. Who's going to do the show, and of course we have to prepare as well the marketing, the content marketing. Okay, that means that we have to do everything to make sure that people will use the good words, and of course the designer is also preparing the everything for the web and what we are showing to people. So this is a main problem, because it is a revolutionary way, to do marketing. And I think that we are in a very intelligent way to make advertising for the right words for the right people in the right time. So that's great.
Yeah, I mean, I just watched a video that Logitech did. Logitech probably makes your webcam. You're probably looking at one right now, and they did a Q&A hangout on air, talking about their Harmony remote control, and I participated in that hangout. It was really, really interesting. And I think brands are starting to take notice that this is such a great way to communicate direct to an audience, and that it lasts. They might get a smaller audience when this hangout is on air on GooglePlus, but then it stays on YouTube and it's just growing and growing and growing, and it's much more engagement than they might have gotten from a Facebook ad or from participating in a Twitter chat or doing an ad in a blog. So we really have something to stand on in this format that we have here, because it is like a television show and it has a lot of great content. There's always the ability to, insert humor and insert your personality, and all those things are good for a brand, because they don't want to just be seen as this corporate thing. They want people to connect to it.
That's
so
right.
I think there's a lot of great opportunities. But in that, though, I was curious, because you mentioned that you have a lot of influencers who pay attention to your show, and that's something that I think is also pretty interesting about GooglePlus. We have all of these HOA hosts that are working on their own shows, and some of them are, their content is very diverse. So, Lainey, your show is so fantastic. You do a lot of women's issues. My show is primarily about the business of interior design, not even really direct to the consumer. We do the business of design. And you're doing your food show, and we have all of these different focuses, but at the same time we really can do a lot by supporting each other and also paying attention. I know this is a little bit of getting on my soapbox, but I really believe we need to do a better job at supporting the brands that do come on to Hangouts. You might quite often see a big, huge brand come on to Hangouts and they get 10 people that showed up. And there's argument that they are not doing it correctly, that maybe they're not marketing it and making those connections on GooglePlus. But as hosts, and we know how hard it was to build our audience, we probably should do a better job at reaching out to some of these brands who are struggling in the beginning and help them build an audience, because there's no reason that some of these huge brands, that the products are so fantastic, that why they shouldn't have an audience. I've said, like, I watched Epicurious when they were talking about coffee. I watched Logitech when they were talking about their answering questions live about their remote control. I saw a hangout with Redbook magazine where they had best-selling authors, two best-selling authors in the hangout, talking about their process of writing their books, and just it was just so fantastic. And there's so much great content. And I think that a lot of the brands aren't even thinking about GooglePlus. They're going right into YouTube and marketing that hangout afterwards. But we have to make them know that GooglePlus is also such a fantastic place to get viewers and to get an audience. We may work a little bit differently, but if we support each other, we're stronger for that, I think.
Should I say just one word about a wonderful book? I think so. From David Ameland, I was speaking a couple of days ago, and I have decided with my partners to offer. Listen as well. It's funny. I have decided to offer this book to each of my clients. Okay, and I know that even if they don't read it, they know that something's really going on. So we are soon making a HOA with David here in France to introduce this wonderful subject. We have many targets, and Frenchmen are very late on this subject. So we are just providing beautiful books like HOA for Business. I think it's really great to talk a few words about that.
Can I just interject here for a second, if you don't mind?
Yes, absolutely.
Just to answer a couple of questions. One, firstly, from Zahar. I don't know if you can just blue box this. Just about one more sentence on the expansion of contextual. There's a very good book out there written by a gentleman who's very infamous in the technology world about contextual advertising, and it's called The Age of Context and it's by Robert Scoble. And if you're interested in contextual marketing, contextual advertising, it's a really good book. I mean, it's basically about providing the right message at the right time to the right people, and I think that is fundamentally important. And BL, bless her, has put a question in a long while ago, which I think, Michael, you've got blue box there, because it's something that we've been discussing.
Yeah, I've got blue box for you.
And I think this is a really important point about whether, and you mentioned it, Laurie, about being a TV show. On TV shows, every single person that appears in a TV show, live or otherwise, has to sign a release form to say, yes, I'm happy for my content to go out there. I'm interested with all of you guys as to whether or not you're getting your guests to sign release forms, and if not, do you know of any regulations that we should be signing release forms?
No, I really don't know.
Well,
I don't know the
Google Sorry, Lori. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead, because I really didn't know the answer.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. I mean, as an HOA host, when you join an HOA live, when you say you check a box that says you understand that you're being recorded and there's terms and agreements that you are agreeing to. So I know that that's automatic with YouTube and on Google HOAs.
Yes, you're right. That does happen, and I will say that when I have been at a trade show live and I just want to do a video, I do bring release forms, but I don't do that. You know, I never have done that for a Hangout, and that's probably the reason. So that's great. That's a great answer.
One thing though, I'm just trying to check. I'm just going to try and join it again from a different account. Isn't that an arrangement between you and Google or stroke YouTube rather than you and the content which is driven by the host? Aren't they two?
I think it's an agreement between you and YouTube, but that covers that you're going on to a Hangout on Air and that it will be a public broadcast.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've actually taken the time to download and read everything and all the associated documents related to that one disclaimer that comes up there, and that's why I mentioned about the intellectual property that Scott Scowcroft brought up earlier, who owns the IP. But this question about signing releases, that's an interesting one for me as well. If we were to host shows on a regular basis, you know, what happens if somebody watches the show afterwards? I mean, it has happened. I've actually been asked very quickly to go into somebody's account and chop out, I think it was a 10-second segment where the person said something that was inappropriate. They didn't realise at the time, and they just said, "Could you please take it out for me?"
Oh,
so I said,
I've
yeah,
had that
sure.
happen. I've had that happen too. Even brands will do that because, you know, you're having this conversation and everyone feels very comfortable, but at the end, sometimes they said something that they didn't mean to release to the public yet, and that can sometimes come up in an interview. And, you know, the great thing about it is that you can go on the other end, you can edit it. You know, so if a brand asks me to do that, I have done that in the past, but you don't want to get obviously too into depth with editing back and forth because that can be financially
I'm so pleased you said that. I'm so pleased because actually I'd like every single moment that I've spoken deleted from this recording. And on the little bottom bit, when I'm there, right, I just want a little blur around my face, right, because I haven't signed anything.
Okay, Michael, we'll work on that.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I do when we're running a broadcast, the actual film strip that we see, the public don't see. And it's purely and simply because I want to sit there drinking a coffee and looking at the screens while everybody else is talking. And I don't want the focus to be on the film strip. I want it to be on, you know, whoever's speaking.
I have a question. I know this is a little bit off topic, but James, do you participate in the London Design Festival, the London Design Week at all? It's in September, I believe, and you know they have Decorex and just the London Tent event, which is like artisans and all sorts of like amazing furniture. And
do you know what? You gave such a lovely question, and it would be really rude for me to just say no. But the simple answer is sadly not. But look, do you know what? It's one of the areas where, because of the stuff that I'm into, yeah, I mean, it's highly likely I would like to be there because of some of the stuff. So, yeah, maybe this year.
It is such a great show. I was able to go as a sponsored blog tour member from Modennis and last year, and it was just such a fantastic event.
Well, tell you what, let's do a deal then. Let's do a deal, right? Let's try and set
Yeah,
up this year.
great.
We will.
Great trip
let's
to London.
Let's go and do mobile hangouts from the design show. All right.
Actually, that's you mentioned that, but we've been talking about that, and we actually have had events where we have broadcasted from the trade show live, and there's so much interest in it. There's so much interest because you spent all this money on at a trade event to make your booth look fantastic, and you have a certain amount of people who come into the show, but not every one person can get to every trade show in their own industry. And so to be able to stream some of that content live, or to have a piece of content at the end of the trade show when everything was set up beautifully and you had that energy of the show that you can actually share with people who didn't make it, it's awesome.
Sorry, I just had some funny thing clicking on in mine. I don't know if you heard that.
Laurie's muted.
Laurie, you're muted. Okay, good. But look, if you want to do these mobile hangouts, I'm well up for that, Laurie. I think it would be absolutely ideal.
Fantastic. And we actually do have in the interior design community quite a few UK manufacturers. So I love them, by the way. And So To Bed, they make luxury beds. They're amazing. They're like the most beautiful beds you've ever seen. And then Mineheart.com, which is they have these really funny, eclectic, whimsical sort of furnishings and paintings and wallpaper. They're the coolest company ever.
I can just imagine having a mobile hangout from a bed. I mean, that would
you
be...
should. That would. I think that the last show Decorex was at Kensington Palace. It was a trade show out of Palace, which is beyond amazing. And then So To Bed, they did it like a harem.
Yeah, I love that.
It was and they had their bed. It was. Yeah, you could do a hangout from there.
guys, you guys have just given me a spectacular title for a post when I want to, how do we say, repurpose the content for this video.
Sure. What is that?
Oh no! I'm not going to spoil the surprise.
Okay, now I'm blushing.
Hey guys, we're about up to an hour now, but
all right.
I don't know if we covered everything. I know there's still a few questions.
I think we have. I think that people have an idea that they have to really make sure that the sponsor matches their content, matches their brand, and matches their audience as best they can, and to be respectful of the brand, but at the same time, really always stay true to your audience, because they're the people that your brands are paying you to, the reason that your brands are paying you to sponsor your show. So try to make sure that you really, keep that integrity for your audience. And I can say that Plus My Reach, the reason I was so enthralled with having this information was because I really wanted to know who my engagers were so that I could grow that list better, and I could respond, and I could thank the people who did come, and I could, share, share better with the engagers that really do spend the time to come to my event, and to know who the engagers are that continually come to my events, because you just don't know this historical data of who is really paying attention to you. You think you know because you have people who comment. But there might be somebody who is plus oneing everything that you do, and they're watching, but they're not really on your radar. And I think that's one of the great things about our tool, and the ability to grow that and engage better with our audiences and build that audience, and that should bring sponsors. So with that, I think we should say goodbye.
Yeah, I'm going to wrap up quickly, but I just want to hand back to the guest for a few seconds, just to give us a few final words. By the way, Laurie, there is a technical term for when somebody gets lots and lots of plus ones, but I can't say it on a broadcast.
I know.
Okay. James, would you like to just wrap up for us, please, mate?
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I hope it's been interesting, but I just want to just comment on what BL has been mentioning in the comment stream about the HOA terms, that they are Google terms, not your own terms. It doesn't cover the rights to monetize. And what she's saying here, it's a good idea to vet it with an attorney. since most of us are not lawyers, and I think it's just very valuable. I think there's a whole segment of conversation around the terms of business and whether or not we should be doing just accepting Google in terms of a tick box, or whether or not we should actually investigate and get released on forms. Because if we're getting an awful lot of purchase from these HOAs and brands are involved and money's involved and contracts are involved, I think we owe it to ourselves to protect ourselves to perhaps look at this a little bit more seriously than just accepting that Google's terms are the right ones for us, which, to be honest, when you're a single entity or you're a small business or you're a medium-sized business, you're not Google. So we owe it to ourselves to do a little bit more research. But look, great. So I'm so pleased I got joined in the end. And
no, it was great to have you, James. Michelle, any final words for us, for the audience?
Thank you very much, all. And remember one thing: make it KISS. Keep it smart and simple.
Fantastic. Thanks, Michelle. Hey, Lainey, are you still with us? I hope.
Yes, I am. Well, thanks for having me on, you guys. I really appreciate it. And I would just, be smart with your guests and be smart with your sponsors that you're going after. Like before you said, make sure they match up. That's something that we're really working with on our show.
Fantastic. Thanks. We'll most definitely be coming back into the comment stream because there are questions that we didn't get to. There will be more. It's as James said, it's a big subject, and I don't think we can cover it sufficiently in the short time that we've had. What do you think, Laurie?
Yeah, and you can always also, if you have a question or if you stumble in the process and you just want another set of eyes on it, always feel free to bring Michael or I into a conversation and show us what you have. We'd be happy to help you and give you our best thoughts about your pitch letter or your contract or your your idea. If you want another ear to run that by and to brainstorm, we're happy to help. We want to make your shows successful.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, everybody, you can join us next week. I think it's the final show, isn't it, Laurie? Woohoo!
Well, it's the final show in this series, and then we want to kick off another series about success stories because we actually success stories already.
I'm really looking
People
forward to
followed
that.
our process and already have sponsors, so that's a fun one.
That's fantastic. Okay, guys, thanks very much, and we'll catch up with you later.